we are discussing set theory session 6. So in this session we are going to solve the question papers, that is what all the previous question papers had these questions, we are going to solve that in this session today. So students, let us first recall those things whichever we have studied, that is we have studied about sets and then the definitions of sets, countable set, uncountable set, and many more theorems we have studied. Depending on all those things, we are going to solve question papers. That is, first let us solve the questions carrying 2 marks. Let us look after one by one. What it is? First let us see for the questions carrying 2 marks. That is, for each question carrying, each question carries 2 marks. We are going to solve those first. Among that first one, what is the first question given? It is given that prove that the set of irrational numbers is uncountable. Prove that the set of irrational numbers is uncountable. We just need to prove that the set of irrational numbers is uncountable. To prove it, let us prove by contradictory method. That is, let us assume that the set of irrational numbers is countable. What we shall consider? Proof. Let the set of irrational numbers be what? Numbers be countable. And also what we know? We know that the set of rational numbers is countable, right? We all know this. We know that the set of rational numbers, is what? Is countable. See, then we all shall focus on the next thing, that is real numbers. What it is? Real numbers, it is the union of both rational numbers and irrational numbers, right? So let R be the set of real numbers, and what it is? And union of what? Union of rational and irrational numbers. If the real rational numbers are countable, then what we are going to do? Therefore, by this definition, what we say? Therefore, R is countable. By this definition, we consider that R is countable. But what we know? We already know that R is uncountable. But R is uncountable. Therefore, what is going to happen? Therefore, our assumption is wrong, and what has happened? Therefore, the set of irrational numbers is what? The set of irrational numbers is uncountable. See what we considered? We just assume that the set of irrational numbers is countable, and then what we know? We know that the rational numbers is already countable. Real numbers, what it is? A real number, it is the union of both rational and irrational numbers. Since rational numbers are countable, we consider that R is countable, but what we already know? We already know that R is uncountable. Hence what we proved? We proved that the set of irrational numbers is uncountable. Let us move to the next question. What is the next question given? Define symmetric relation and give an example. Define symmetric relation, and what we are supposed to do? Relation and give an example. We all know what is symmetric relation, right? If A is related to B, a relation R on a set A is said to be symmetric one. If A is equivalent to B, then B should also be equivalent to A. Then only we are going to say that it is symmetric. The same thing we are going to write it. What we are going to write? Let R be a relation R on a set A is said to be what? Is said to be symmetric if, when we are going to say that it is symmetric, if A is related to B, then what it should, if A is equivalent to B, then it should imply that B should also be equivalent to A, or B should also be related to A. Then we say that it is a symmetric relation. That is, if A comma B belongs to R, then what should happen? Then B comma A should also belongs to what? It should also belongs to R. For example, for all AB belongs to R, if A is equals to B, then what should happen? Then B should be equal to A. If A is equals to B, this implies what? This implies that B should also be equal to A. This is going to be called as what? It will be called as a symmetric relation. Very simple. If A is related to B, then B should also be related to A. That is equivalent to A. Now let us see the next question. What they have given? Define partition of a set. Next, what is third question given? Define partition of a set. Define partition of a set. So how we are going to define the partition of a set? Let S be any set, a partition of set P of, let S be any set, a partition of set P. How we are going to write? A partition of set S is a what family? Subfamily. Is a subfamily. How it is? What kind of subfamily it is? Subfamily P of S if there are three conditions to be followed. That is first, second and third. What are these conditions? A should belong to what? For all, A should belong to this subfamily P. And what about the next condition? In such a way that A should not equal to be an empty set. And the next is union of this thing. What is going to happen? union of A, for all A belongs to this P, it should be yes. Why so? Because it is a subfamily. The union of this set should be equal to yes. And also the third condition is that AB should belongs to P. How? In such a way that their intersection should be empty. How we are going to say? In such a way that it's and A is not equal to B implies A intersection B should be an empty set. How? Suppose this is entire a set S. It should be having a subfamily like A1, A2, A3, A4, A5, A6, A7, A8. Entirely it should be of different elements. No one should overlap with each other. A8, A9, A10, A11, 12, 13, A14, A15, A16, A17, A18, like this, so on, in such a way that it should not overlap with each other. Their intersection should be empty. Then we are going to say that it is a partition set, in such a way that a partition of set divides a set into non-overlapping, non-empty sets. The sets should be not empty. A18, A19, A20, 21, 22, 23 and 24. Well, it should be non-empty and non-overlapping. Then we say that each element is not more than, each element should not have more than one subset. Then we are going to say that it is a partition of a set. Next, let us focus on the next question. So, what is the next question given? It is given that define an equivalence relation and give an example. What we are supposed to do? We are supposed to define an equivalence relation. When we are going to say a relation is equivalence, when it is reflexive, symmetric and transitive, then only we say that the relation R is an equivalence relation. A relation R on a set A, a relation R on a set A is said to be what? Is said to be equivalence if it is first one, it should be reflexive, and then it should be what? It should be symmetric, and then if it is transitive. If all the three conditions are satisfied, then we are going to say that the relation is an equivalence relation. That is, for example, a relation R is defined on the set. A relation R is defined on the set n cross n, such as, how we are going to define it? We are going to define it as AB is related to A comma B is related to C comma D. How? In such a way that we are going to say, if an equal to B plus C. Then this relation R is said to be what? Is said to be an equivalence relation. Is an equivalence relation. Is an equivalence relation on which set? Equivalence relation on N cross N set. That is, it is defined in such a way that A plus B will be equal to B plus C. Then it is an equivalence relation. Now next, let us solve one more problem. What they have given? Define transitive relation. Define transitive relation and give an example. When we are going to say a relation is transitive, when we say that A is equivalent to B and B is equivalent to C, then A should be equivalent to C. Then it is called as a transitive relation. So how we are going to define a transitive relation? A relation R on a set A. A relation R on a set A is said to be transitive. When we are going to say it as a transitive, is said to be transitive if A is equivalent to B and B is equivalent to C or related to C, then A should be related to C. Let us consider one example. Suppose a set has A is greater than B and B is greater than C. Then it obviously implies that A is greater than C. Then the relation, which relation? This greater than is greater than is what? Is greater than, it is an transitive relation. Is transitive. Clear? So next let us solve one more problem. So what is the next problem given? Define countability of a set and give an example. Define countability of set and give an example. When we are going to say that the set is countable, when it is either finite or it is denumerable, then only we can say that it is countable. A set is said to be a set A is said to be countable when if A is either finite or the other condition is that A is denumerable. That is either A is finite, or for denumerable how we are going to write? Either A is finite or A is equivalent to N. Then we say that A is countable. Then the set, that is, what is N here? the set of all natural numbers. They have asked us to give an example, right? The subset of integers, what it is? It is countable. Every subset of z is nothing but integers, is countable. For example, every subset of z, every subset of z is what? Is countable. We defined countability of set and we gave an example. Next, let us solve one more problem. What we are supposed to define? Define surjective function and give an example. Define surjective function. Define surjective function and give an example. Surjective is nothing but onto, right? That is, let f be a function from x to y in such a way that every y should belongs to y. It should have a pre-image. Then we are going to say that the function is onto from x to y. Onto is nothing but what? Onto is nothing but surjective. Solution. We are going to say. We are going to say that f from x to y be a function in such a way that let f from x to y, let this be a function in such a way that y belongs to y should have what? It should have pre-image, right? Y belongs to y should have pre-image under f, pre-image under f, then f is a function from what? Function from x onto y. It has pre-image under this function f, then we say that it is a function x, f from x onto y. That is how we are going to define. That is, f is a function from x to y. How we are supposed to tell that f is a function from x to y? If f of a will be equal to b. That is, f of a will be equal to b. We need to give an example. Indexed family, that is index set IA, let this be our identity set, that is from A to A is obviously going to be what? It is going to be an onto function or it is an surjective function. IA from A to A is surjective. I hope you all have followed this. Now let us solve one more problem, that is one more problem. What they have given? They have given that if A is denumerable, if A is denumerable and f from A to B is injective, then show that f of A is what? You need to show that f of A is also denumerable. What they have given? They have given A is denumerable. Since equivalent to n. What is n? The set of natural numbers. If it is G numerable and A is equivalent to n, and what they have given? Since f is a function from A to B, how it is injective. If it is injective, then what we are also going to say is injective, and f from A to f of A, that is f from A to f of A is always what? Surjective, that is onto. F from A to f of A is always surjective. That is why what we conclude? We conclude that it is injective as well as surjective. That is why we conclude that f from A to f of A is, if it is injective and surjective, then we say that it is bijective. Then f from A to f of A is bijective. So if it is bijective, what we say, therefore A is equivalent to f of A. But what we know? We know that but A is equivalent to n. Then what we are going to do further? If it is A is equivalent to f of A, but we know that A is equivalent to n. This implies that n will be equivalent to A. What A is equivalent to n is nothing but what? N is equivalent to A. And what we know? We know that A is equivalent to f of A and n is equivalent to A. Then obviously f of A should be equivalent to n, right? That is what we are going to write now. N is equivalent to A and A is equivalent to f of A. This implies what? This implies f of A, or this implies n is equivalent to f of A. We have already considered that A is equivalent to n. We proved that A is equivalent to f of A. Then what is going to happen? Then n will be equivalent to f of A. Hence what happened? Hence f of A is denumerable. What we proved? A is denumerable, and if A is equivalent and f is function from A to B, it is injective. Then we proved that f of A is denumerable. Now let us solve questions of each question carrying 5 marks. Till now we solved the questions carrying 2 marks. Now we will solve questions carrying 5 marks. That is section 2. Now we are going to discuss about section 2. How they are. Each question carries how many marks? Carries 5 marks. Okay. Among that, first question. What is the first question given? Prove that B intersection union of A lambda in such a way that lambda belongs to this index set is equals to union of B intersection A lambda, where lambda belongs to this index set, where lambda belongs to this index set. Okay, we need to prove that B intersection union of A lambda will be equal to union of B intersection A lambda. Let us start proving. Proof. First, consider LHS. What it is given? B intersection union of A lambda, where lambda belongs to this index set. Then what we are going to consider? Let x be any element. What does this imply? This implies that x belongs to what? X belongs belongs to B intersection union of A lambda, where lambda belongs to this indexed set. It implies what? It implies that X belongs to B. Intersection in the sense what we are going to write? We are going to write as X belongs to B and X belongs to union of A lambda, where this lambda belongs to this indexed set. Since intersection is given, we used, and then what is going to happen next? It implies X belongs to B and X belongs to union of A lambda means what? X belongs to A lambda for at least one lambda belongs to this indexed set, for at least one lambda. We said that X belongs to B and X belongs to A lambda. It implies what? X belongs to, since B is written here, we write B intersection A lambda. What we are going to write? We write it as X belongs to B intersection A lambda. If so, what we are going to write further? B intersection A lambda for at least how many? For at least one lambda. It implies that X belongs to union of B intersection A lambda, where lambda belongs to this indexed set. Right? We wanted this, right? X belongs to union of B intersection A lambda, where lambda belongs to this indexed set. What we proved now? Therefore, B intersection union of A lambda, where lambda belongs to this index set, it is going to be what? It is an subset of union of B intersection A lambda, where lambda belongs to this indexed set. Let us consider this as 1. Now let us consider the RHS part. Let X belongs to what? Union of B intersection A lambda. X belongs to this union of B intersection A lambda in the sense how we are going to further simplify that. B intersection union of A lambda. Then what is going to happen? This implies X belongs to B. X belongs to, just a minute, fine. X belongs to B and X belongs to what? A lambda. What we said? X belongs to B and X belongs to what? X is going to belong for A lambda. Then what is going to happen? X is going to belong for B. This implies X is going to belong for B and X is going to belong for union of A lambda, where lambda belongs to this indexed set. It means what? X is going to belong for B and instead of and use the intersection. Implies X belongs to B intersection union. Wait. X belongs to B intersection union of A lambda, where lambda belongs to this indexed set. Then what is going to happen? Therefore, union of B intersection A lambda, where lambda belongs to this indexed set, is subset of what? B intersection union of A lambda, lambda belongs to this indexed set. Computing 1 and 2. Computing 1 and 2, we get that B intersection union of A lambda, where lambda belongs to this index set is equals to union of B intersection A lambda, where lambda belongs to this index set. Very simple. We just consider the LHS part. We proved step by step this x belongs to B and x belongs to union of A lambda. If it is belonging to union of A lambda, then it should at least belong to one A lambda. Then we wrote x belongs to B intersection A lambda. Then it should belong for this union of B intersection A lambda. Hence it is subset. And then we proved it on the other side. That is union of B intersection A lambda means it should belong to B and it should belong to A lambda. That is for at least one lambda. If so, then it is going to belong for union of A lambda. Then what is going to happen? Is going to belong for B intersection union of A lambda. That is going to be the subset. And hence computing 1 and 2, we prove that B intersection union of A lambda is equals to union of B intersection A lambda, where lambda belongs to this index set. Let us solve one more problem. These all questions in the section 2. Each question carries how many marks? They are going to carry 5 marks. Okay. What is the next question given? It is given that if f is a function from A to B and g is a function from B to C and g is a function from B to C are two bijective functions. How are they? Are two bijective functions, then prove that composition of functions, that is g of f inverse is equals to f inverse of g inverse. These are the composition functions. We have already studied about it, right? Let us prove it. What they have given? Proof. Let f from A to B and g from B to C be bijective, means be what? 1 1 and onto functions. Bijective in the sense both 1 1 and onto, right? That is what we have written. Be 1 1 and onto functions. They have given that this implies g of f is what? G of f is 1 1 and onto. They themselves have given it, right? Then the composition of the functions is also going to be 1 1 and onto. If so, how we are going to write? It is invertible. G of f is invertible. If it is invertible, then therefore, how we are going to write it? G of f inverse, that is also going to be what? Is a function from C to A. G of f, its inverse is going to be a function from C to A. Also, G inverse is going to be a function from what? If it is from B to C, it is going to be a function from C to B. And one more thing, what we are going to write is f inverse. F inverse is if f is a function from A to B, then f inverse is going to be a function from what? It is going to be a function from B to A. Now its composition, that is, therefore, how we are going to write? Therefore, f inverse of G inverse, it is going to be a function from what? It is going to be a function from C to A. F inverse composition G inverse, it is going to be a function from C to A, right? F inverse and G inverse. G of F inverse is a function from C to A, and the composition, that is F inverse of G inverse, is also a function from C to A. That is domain of G of F inverse. Domain of G of F inverse is equals to what? Domain of G inverse, that is domain of F inverse of G inverse, that is the composition functions. The domain got equal. Then what we are going to write? Now we just show it. Now let us prove further that. Now let A belongs to A, B belongs to B, and C belongs to C. How? Such that let A belongs to A, B belongs to B, and C belongs to C, such that we are going to define the function. How we are going to define the function? In such a way that f of A is equals to B. F of A is equals to B and f of B is equals to C. If so, what is going to happen? A will be equal to F inverse of B, right? Yes or no? A will be equal to F inverse of B, and this implies A is equals to F inverse of B and B will be equal to F inverse of C. Right? F of A will be equal to B and F of B will be equal to C. It implies what? A will be equal to F inverse of B and B will be equal to F is a function and G inverse. Then now what is going to happen? Composition. Just consider its composition, that is G of F of A. How we are going to define it? G of F of A. What is F of A? F of A is B, right? G of B. Now what is G of B? It is C. We got G of F of A, that is equals to what? That is equals to C. Next, what about this? G of F of A. Then what about the inverse functions? That is G of F inverse of C, that will be equal to A, right? G of F inverse of C, that will be equal to A. Now let us consider F inverse of G inverse of what? This function C. F inverse of G inverse of this function C, that can be written as F inverse of G inverse of C. What is G inverse of C? It is B. And what is F inverse of B? That is equal to A. Again, what we proved? G of F inverse of C is equals to A and F inverse of G inverse of C is equals to A. Then what we proved? Hence, we proved that the composition function, that is G of F inverse is equals to F inverse of G inverse. So students, I hope you have followed this. Now let us solve one more problem. Prove that an equivalence relation R on a non-empty set A, on a non-empty set A, determine a partition of A. Determine a partition of A. Proof. What they have given? they have given an equivalence relation R is on a non-empty set A. We need to determine the partition of A. How we are going to solve it? Let R be an equivalence relation on set A. Let R be an equivalence relation on A. Then what we are going to do? Since this A, just now we have in this session only we have defined the definition of partition of A. A is going to be what? A subset of A. Then for all A belongs to A, if A belongs to A, this A is a subset of A is the sense what is going to happen? Its union, that is union of A in such a way that A belongs to this A is going to be a subset of A. Union of A is also going to be the subset of A. Hence what is going to happen? Hence union of A, where A belongs to A, will be equal to what? That will be equal to A. If it is equal to, you now let A belongs to, wait. Now let A belongs to, then we say that A is equivalent to A or A is related to A. Why we are going to say? They have already said it is an equivalence relation, right? That is going to be reflexive. A is related to A. If so, what we are going to write? Because R is reflexive. What is the reason we are giving here? Because R is reflexive. That is why we wrote that A is related to A or A is equivalent to A. So what we are going to write? It is so A belongs to this A. Since it is reflexive, we are going to write A belongs to A is going to be the subset of union of A, where A belongs to this capital A. So A belongs to A is subset of union of A. Therefore, what is going to happen now? Therefore, A is going to be subset of union of A, where A belongs to this capital A. Here we wrote that union of A is subset of A and A is subset of union of A. Then what we are going to write? Then it is going to be like union of A, where this A belongs to this capital A will be equal to A. This is going to be equal to A. Now if it is equal to A, this shows that every equivalence class is non-empty. We need to note that this shows that, note that it shows every equivalence class is what? Every equivalence class is non-empty. Then every equivalence class is non-empty. If it is not empty, to complete this proof, what we need to show? To complete this proof, we need to show that that is A intersection B is an empty set. To complete this proof, we need to show A intersection B is an empty set when A is not equal to B. What is the condition? When A is not equal to b. If so, what we are going to do further? Let x belongs to A intersection B. Let x belongs to A intersection B. What does this mean? X belongs to A intersection B. X belongs to A intersection B. Then x is related to R. Right? Then x is equivalent to A you say, or x is related to A. How? Because R is symmetric. How we are going to write? A is related to x. Because R is symmetric, what we can write? A is related to x, or A is equivalent to x. Then what we are going to do further? This implies x belongs to B implies x is related to B. Obviously, yes or no? If it belongs to B, then it is related to B. Then what is going to happen? A is equivalent to B. Why so? We said that x is equivalent to A, then that can be written as A is equivalent to x. Now we said that x belongs to B. This implies x is equivalent to B. X is equivalent to A, x is equivalent to B. It implies that A and A is equivalent to B. Why? Because R is transitive. Why A is equivalent to B? Because R is they have already said R is equivalence relation. If R is equivalence relation, we said it is reflexive, we said it is symmetric, then what is going to happen? If A is equivalent to B, it implies, what is the reason we are giving? Because R is transitive. But A belongs to B, we claim that, but if A belongs to B, what we claim? We claim that A is equals to B. What we are going to claim? We are going to claim that A, this is equals to B. If so, let Y belongs to A. Let Y belongs to A. Why? The reason is, since Y is related to A, or Y is equivalent to A. Instead of writing that equivalent, we are going to use it R. And what we are going to say? A is related to B implies Y is related to B, or Y is equivalent to B. This implies what? This implies Y is going to belong for B. Y is going to belong for B. See from where we started? We started let Y belongs to A. Then since Y is equivalent to A and A is related to, since Y related to A and A is related to B, we say that Y is related to B. It implies Y belongs to B. Then what is going to happen next? We have thus shown that, now what we showed? We have thus shown that this A is subset of B. If so, if we now we have taken here Y belongs to A. If we had taken Y belongs to B, what we used to get? If we had taken Y belongs to B. See, we have here taken Y belongs to A, we got that Y belongs to B. The same way, if we had taken that Y belongs to B, we would arrive at what condition? We would arrive at B is subset of A. Here we have taken y belongs to A, then we arrived at the conclusion that A is subset of B. The same way, if we had taken y belongs to B, then we would arrive at the conclusion that B is subset of A. Then what we have? And so A is equals to B. This is contradiction, right? This is going to be the contradiction to our assumption. This is contradiction to our assumption. Therefore, what is going to happen? Which is contradiction to our assumption. Hence, A intersection B. Hence, A intersection B is equal to an empty set when A is not equal to B. Then what we did? Just let us glance over. They have given R is an equivalence relation on A. Since they gave it, we said A is subset of A for all these A belongs to the capital A. Then its union is also going to be the subset of A. Now what we consider? Let A belongs to A. Then obviously A is equivalent to A or A is related to Y. Why? Because it is reflexive. Then we said that A is going to be the subset of union of A. And therefore what is happened? We proved that union of A will be equal to this set A. Now it shows that equivalence class is non-empty. To complete this proof, what we are supposed to show? Its intersection is going to be empty where A is not equal to B. So what we considered? Let X belongs to A intersection B. Then what we said? X is equivalent to A, and if so, since R is symmetric, we said A is equivalent to X or A is related to X. It implies if X belongs to B, then X is related to B. Then since R is transitive, A is related to B. But A belongs to B, we claim that A is equals to B. Then what we did? If Y belongs to A, then A is subset of B. If instead of A, if we had considered it for B, we would arrive at a conclusion that B is subset of A. That is why what happened? A is equals to B. This is contradiction to our assumption that A's intersection will be empty. Hence, A intersection B is going to be an empty set when A is not equal to B. Hence the proof. So students, I hope you all have followed these problems. We have one more problem for carrying a question carrying 5 marks. That is what they have given. They have given that prove that the unit interval 0, 1 is uncountable. We have already discussed the proof which in our earlier sessions, so please follow that. I hope you all are following these questions. Stay safe, keep studying. Thank you.